So I've been really into Mewgenics lately. Whoa, calm down. I said Mewgenics, with an M, like a cat, not eugenics. Who do you think I am, Teddy Roosevelt? Hey man, not cool. Mewgenics just came out and it's already one of the best games I've ever played. I've always been a fan of Ed McMillan's games, with The Binding of Isaac being my favorite game of all time, so when I heard about him making this game years ago, I was beyond excited to play it. Well, that long wait is over and I couldn't be happier with the game. In case you aren't aware of the game topping the Steam charts on release, Mewgenics is a turn-based strategy roguelite where you breed cats for better stats as characters on your run. The game's scope is huge, and as much as I would love to talk about everything this game throws your way, I want this video to be a short review of the beginning of the game so that players can know what to expect if they're still on the fence about buying it. Originally, at the time of writing the script, I was only up to the beginning of the game. I only really beat the first act, and I decided that I wanted to review it. Since then, I've kept playing and playing and playing obsessively because I'm addicted, and now that I'm further into the game, I still want to make this review a bit spoiler-free. I feel like a lot of the game's content I was accidentally spoiled for just by scrolling on Twitter, and I'd rather create some kind of safe space where people that are still deciding if they want to get into this super cool but kinda gross game can figure out if they want to buy it without having some of the cooler or funnier things spoiled for them. I also wanted to talk about this game compared to one of Ed McMillan's earlier games, The Binding of Isaac, since I went into this game under the impression it would be more similar to how that is as a roguelike, and I was very wrong. Plus, this was the first proper strategy roguelike that wasn't a deck builder that I've ever played. And if there are other players like me who could use some onboarding into the unforgiving world of Mewgenics, I want to help, so I hope you enjoy the video. A lot of the publicity Mewgenics has gotten has been about how absurd the game is. You breed progressively grosser and grosser cats and give them super feline abilities. The voices in the game come from some popular and even notorious internet figures, and the names you get for your cats are all crazy and funny. What I'm saying is, all of the talk around this game seems to be about its premise and observable content, and a lot of the gameplay discussions end up being about later stages of the game and how hard it gets. But to someone who might still be in the early stages of the game, or haven't even bought it and are expecting a more simple roguelike experience, I would want to know what I'm getting into starting off instead of down the line. If you're coming into Mewgenics thinking it'll have similar gameplay loops to The Binding of Isaac, you'd be wrong. The main difference between the two games, besides the kind of game being completely different, is that Mewgenics is actually more of a roguelite when compared to Isaac, which I would classify as a roguelike. Where in Isaac you would pick a character and start the same way every run, Mewgenics carries your progression heavily from one run to another, with your cat's stats and moves being dependent on their parents and your ability to bring equipment from past runs into future ones. Although I can't say which game is harder since they're so different, I can say that the stakes in Mewgenics are much higher. See, while you may be used to a full run in Isaac taking maybe an hour and a half tops, Mewgenics runs are gonna take longer in full, and that means when you die, you'll lose all that time invested, along with whatever cats, equipment, and supplies you brought or gathered. Of course, Mewgenics has ways to ease the pain of losing a run. You can recover some lost supplies or go home early if the run is looking that grim after a boss fight. But where in Isaac, even your most pathetic of runs, you can still get unlocks by reaching certain bosses before dying to something stronger, Mewgenics doesn't really offer you that sense of progress from defeat. If you want to dedicate to unlocking something or getting some major progress to the game, you need to put your cat's lives on the line, and be ready to spend a ton of time even in runs where you don't get to the furthest point you can. Now, I know it sounds like I'm dogging on the game for its difficulty, but in actuality it's not that hard, just unforgiving. I wanted to front load this video with all the stuff that worried me so I could save the rest for things I think are interesting about the game and essentially just gas it up. The first thing I want to properly gas up the game for are its synergies. There are so many different classes with different abilities that interact with the world in their own way, and you might find cats with moves that seem completely useless, but trust me, you just haven't found out how to use them. You might find a move like Eat Rock that, as the name implies, lets you consume a rock to increase your strength, and on that same cat, you can have a move that spawns rocks, or even turns enemies into them. That's just one simple example of how even the stupidest of moves can be your win condition in almost every single battle. An early personal example of this was a run where I had a cat that could eat corpses for free spells, and he also had a spell that let him teleport and spawn a body next to him, which essentially let him be anywhere he wanted on the map given he had enough starting mana. Although these synergies work very heavily in your favor, that doesn't stop other synergies with debuffs working against you in the same ways. Instead of explaining what could happen, I'll just have you take a look at this clip from one of my runs. I cut my voice out of that clip because I was embarrassed by how much I was yelling at my fictional cats to stop slaughtering each other, but that just goes to show what catastrophes can happen if you let your glass cannon go a bit haywire. This game also does a pretty good job of explaining everything that's happening. Hovering over an item, ability, passive, or unit will tell you every buff, debuff, or abilities you need to know about it, making the game pretty streamlined and easy to learn. There are only a couple things that confused me when I was just starting out, and I'll explain those things right here now to save you the hassle. First of all, if you read about an item that gives you charge, but doesn't tell you what charge does, it means that you'll gain mana. Although, if it doesn't tell you explicitly what it does, it probably won't be that useful, since the game really wants you to use the good items. Second of all, if you see a bird that you want to kill for an extra item and you don't think it'll run away, do not save it for last. You'll only ever make this mistake once, but you don't need to kill birds to progress combat, and the battle will just end if you don't kill it before your last proper enemy. If you couldn't tell, birds are kind of enemy in the game that keep appearing. They're like loot boxes. And finally, this is a word of advice on a mechanic you might find useful if you get into a pinch. There's an anti-save scum feature in the game, but only kind of. Let me explain. Let's say in a battle, one of your cats dies. Fully. There'd be no way to bring him back unless you save and quit and restart the battle. Edmund McMillen thought of this, and instead of making it so that your cat stays dead when you refight the battle, or anything that could properly screw you over, going back into the map after quitting to the menu while in a battle will give you an encounter with Steven. Steven is from one of Edmund McMillen's earlier games, Time Fakuk, and he's here to play the role of Mr. Assetti, like from Animal Crossing. If you try to mess with the game by save scumming, he'll come out and warn you that if you do it again, he'll place a real-life curse on you. In actuality, he'll progressively debuff your cats more and more with a unique debuff that disappears at the end of your run. And if you continue to do it enough times, he'll fully take control of your cats and play for you. That might not sound too horrible, but he's pretty bad at the game. Why is this useful? You get one free save scum per run, which means you have exactly one do-over if you get into deep shit. If you need to save scum any further though, be ready for that run to be a lot more of a hassle than you anticipated. I really like that he implemented this mechanic because he knows that players will try to do this trick, and instead of implementing it in a way that completely fucks you over, he lets you get away with it to a degree, turning it into a game mechanic. I do think it can be a bit harsh sometimes, since I'm a bit of a crybaby when it comes to losing my progress in a game, but that's just the breaks of roguelikes. The last thing I want to talk about properly, that is something that actually steps away from gameplay, which is what I like prioritizing in, is the music. Now, Mewgenics is an already pretty stylized game, to say the least, and I think it's charming, albeit a bit dilapidated, but there's one part of the game that has kept me going even more than the crazy cats and insane combos. If you're a player of The Binding of Isaac, you might remember that rooms with enemies in them have another layer of music that get added, like heavy guitar to make it into some kind of awesome fight song. Mewgenics does something similar, where depending on the kind of room you're in, whether it be a room with enemies or the map or maybe some random encounter, it changes its music slightly. Think like Balatro. The only exception to this, the one that changes it the most, is when you get up to a boss. When you get up to a boss, you unlock lyrics to the song that play for the entire fight. Lyrics that fucking rock. Every single song in this game is an insane earworm. The game can charm me in as much cool abilities, food, and money that it wants, and there will still not be anything more rewarding than learning that the song I've been listening to has the funniest and catchiest lyrics I've ever heard.
Swirled round a pole, shot through a hole, pushed through a pole, spun out of control.
If you have never played strategy roguelikes, if you don't even know what you're in for when you're getting Mewgenics, and you just want to try it, you should try it for the music. I know it sounds silly. A game made by M. McMillen is supposed to be this gross thing that you play for the gameplay. But when I tell you that this music is so charming and crazy, I mean it. I could go on and on about how good this game is in other regards, but I think with how well this game has done so far, it's evidence of that enough. The rest of this video is just going to be me updating you guys on the channel, so if you enjoyed this video and want to see more from me, please subscribe and watch me stream on Twitch. Okay, hi. This entire part is not going to be scripted, and I just want to talk to you a bit. First of all, I want to thank everyone for their continued support of me, even though I've been on a hiatus long enough to have a baby. I stopped uploading because a lot of the things I was making were actually for a class. I was able to make some weird video essays about whatever I wanted and get graded on it in college. So when I stopped being able to do that for my classes, I kind of just stopped making content. But recently I was monetized, and that's a good incentive to keep going, right? And of course, I am in more more classes that let me make more video essays now, so I'm pretty happy with that. But I do intend on uploading regularly from now on. The odds are I'm already streaming on Twitch and have been for a bit since this video came out. Maybe not, but as of I'm recording this right now, Frick Bears 3 just came out, and I've had people commenting on my latest posts and videos being like, "It's out, you have to play it!" And I'm just trying to get this done so I can. I know this video was short. I just wanted to break the silence in a pretty, smooth way that wasn't another hour-long Frick Bears video. But don't worry, I'll be locking in for my content soon, and you'll have something a bit more substantial that isn't just me yapping about a game I've been playing, so it doesn't look like I've been wasting my time. Thank you for your patience and continued support. I hope I see you guys on stream and watching my newer content. Thank you.
I'm past the atmosphere, well on my way.